This is a vision given to Maria Valtorta on the 2nd of April 1947. It's the Wednesday before Passover, and it's now we've had Holy Week, so we're in the point where Jesus has come in to to Jerusalem on the donkey, and he's been greeted by crowds, and now he's preaching. And when it's the Wednesday before the Passover, which is before he's arrested and crucified. Jesus enters into the temple that is more crowded than on the previous days. He is all dressed in white, in his linen garments. It is a sultry day. He goes to the court of Israel to worship, followed by a train of people, while other people have already taken the best places under the porches, and the majority are Gentiles, who, not being allowed to go beyond the first court, that is the court of the Gentiles, have taken advantage of the fact that the Hebrews have followed the Christ to take favourable positions. But a large group of Pharisees upsets them. They are always arrogant in their behaviour, and they push through the crowd overbearingly to approach Jesus, who is bent over a sick man. They wait until he has cured him. Then they send a scribe to question him. Just stop there for a moment. It strikes me as sadly amusing that Jesus' cures are considered to be so routine that they don't stand back in astonishment and want to join him. They're just waiting for him to get his business out of the way, curing a sick man, so they can then go in as sharks. But there we are. That's them. So to continue. Actually, they had a short discussion first. That's the scribes, the Pharisees. Actually, they had a short discussion first because Joel, named Alamoth, wanted to go to question the master. But a Pharisee objected, and the others supported him, saying, "No, we know that you side with the rabbi, although you do so secretly. Let Uriah go." "Not Uriah," says another young scribe, whom I do not know. "Uriah is too harsh in speaking. He would provoke the crowd. I will go." And without listening any more to the protests of the others, he approaches the master, just when Jesus is dismissing the sick man, saying to him, "Have faith, you are cured. Your fever and pain will not come back anymore." And so this individual who's approached Jesus, the scribe, says, "Master, which is the greatest commandment of the law?" Jesus, behind whose back the scribe is standing, turns round and looks at him. A faint, luminous smile brightens his face. He then raises his head, as he had bent it because the scribe is short of stature, and further, he had bowed to pay his respects to him. So that is, the scribe had bowed to pay his respects to Jesus. Jesus looks round at the crowd. He stares at the group of Pharisees and doctors, and he notices the pale face of Joel, who is half hidden behind a big, sumptuously dressed Pharisee. His smile brightens. It is like a light that caresses the honest scribe. He then lowers his head, looking at his interlocutor, and replies to him, "The first of all the commandments is this. Listen, Israel, the Lord our God is the only Lord. You shall love the Lord your God with all your heart, with all your soul, with all your strength." That is the first and greatest commandment. The second resembles it. You shall love your neighbour as yourself. There are no greater commandments than these two. They comprise all the law and the prophets. "Master, you've replied wisely and truthfully. It is so. There is only one God, and there's no other God except him. To love him with all our hearts, with all our intelligence, with all our souls and all our strength, and to love our neighbour as ourselves, is worth much more than any holocaust and sacrifice. I seriously think so when I meditate on David's words. Quotes, "Holocausts give you no pleasure. A contrite heart is the sacrifice pleasing to God." End quote. Jesus responds, "You are not far from the kingdom of God, because you have understood which holocaust is pleasing to God." "But which is the most perfect holocaust?" asks the scribe in a low voice, as if he were speaking of a secret. Jesus beams with love, letting this pearl drop into the heart of this man who is opening to his doctrine, to the doctrine of the kingdom of God. And bending over him, he says, "The perfect holocaust is to love as ourselves those who persecute us, and not bear any grudge. Whoever does that will possess peace. It is said, 'The lowly shall possess the earth, and shall enjoy the abundance of peace.' I solemnly tell you that he who can love his enemies reaches perfection and possesses God." The scribe greets him respectfully and goes back to his group, who reproach him in low voices for praising the master. And they angrily say to him, "What did you ask him secretly? Have you been seduced by him as well?" "I heard the Spirit of God speak from his lips." "You are silly. Do you perhaps think that he is the Christ?" "Yes, I do." "Truly, before long, we shall see the schools of our scribes empty, while they go roving after that man. But how can you see the Christ in him?" "I do not know how. I know that I feel that it is he." "You're mad." And they turn their backs on him worriedly. Jesus has heard their conversation, and when he sees the Pharisees pass in front of him in a close group and go away worriedly, he calls them saying, "Listen to me. I want to ask you something. According to you, what do you think of the Christ? Whose son is he?" "He will be the son of David," they reply, stressing the words, "will be," because they want to make him understand that as far as they are concerned, he is not the Christ. "How then does David, inspired by God, call him Lord, saying, 'The Lord said to my Lord, sit at my right hand until I make your enemies a footstool for you'? So if David calls the Christ Lord, how can the Christ be his son?" And they do not know what to reply to him. They go away ruminating their poison. Jesus moves away from the place where he was, and which is now flooded with sunshine, to go farther on, where the mouths of the treasury are, near the hall of the treasury. This side, still in the shade, is occupied by rabbis who are haranguing with wide gestures, addressing their Hebrew audience, which is increasing more and more as the people pouring into the temple are increasing continuously as time passes. The rabbis are striving to demolish with their speeches the teachings imparted by the Christ during the previous days or that same morning. And the more they see the crowd of believers grow bigger, the more they raise their voices. In fact, the place, although very large, is crowded with people coming and going in all directions.